PMO could be a portfolio management office. It could be a project management office. It could be a program and a project. It's all about the P. Every company is going to define that P differently. So a supportive PMO or a directive PMO, enterprise PMO, you do very different things if you're building a supportive PMO than you would a directive PMO, and then even an agile PMO. The type of PMO would drive the build schedule. We often don't really understand the value or talk about the value of repeatability and consistency and scalability on how project managers execute on their project, because we want to be fast, we want to be agile, we want to have people thinking on their own and how they're delivering, but that doesn't scale. Most project managers don't want to go to their management layer and say, hey, can you help me with this project? They want to solve it themselves, but to have a buddy, someone they can turn to, would really help with the onboarding as well.
Good morning, good afternoon, and hello everyone. Welcome to Life and IT Project Management, where we take you on journeys connecting life and IT project management, filling the gap with practical, relatable content tailored for everyone from kids to seasoned professionals. I am your ever learning host, Justice Ayala, a project manager myself. Today we have a very special guest, Bill Dow. He's a seasoned project management professional with over 25 years of experience in the industry. He's widely recognized for his expertise in establishing and managing PMOs, project management officers, with a proven track record of driving project delivery excellence across various projects. Bill has been instrumental in guiding organizations through the complexities of project management, ensuring alignment with business objectives, and fostering a culture of continuous improvement. He is the owner of Dow Publishing LLC. He's also the owner of the YouTube channel at @BillDowPMO_PM Coach, with over 210 videos and over 2,000 subscribers. Join me in welcoming the project management leader, author, and PMO expert, Bill Dow.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate being here. So thanks for giving me the time today. Look forward to it.
Awesome. Today, our topic is strategic playbook for 2025, building and managing a high impact PMO. Strategic playbook for 2025, building and managing a high impact PMO. I'll dive right into the questions.
Great.
And the very first question, for the benefit of those professionals transitioning into project management, and for so many professionals who don't know, let's start by defining what a PMO is. So can you please, from your own standpoint, beyond the technical, beyond the regular book theoretical definition, what is a PMO and what are its primary functions, particularly in the context of 2025?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because I think from 24-25, I think it's going to be fundamentally the same answer. So a PMO is a project management office. Now, that is when we use the term P for project management, right? And so when you think about a PMO could be a portfolio management office. It could be a project management office. It could be a program and a project. It's all about the P. And every company is going to define that P differently. So in 2024, 2025, they're always going to define that P differently. That also means that you have to think about the type of PMO. So a supportive PMO or a directive PMO or an enterprise PMO, that all has to fundamentally be understood by that particular company. So what is it? It's going to be generally, in most cases, and what most people think on LinkedIn and when they search the internet, they think a directive project management office, which is an organization that drives projects through the company.
Fantastic. So in the context of that, I imagine new initiatives, I imagine existing initiatives in flight. And that brings me back to, for those who have read your book, and those who haven't read your book, you have communicated the need for, you have communicated the phrase PMO build schedule.
Yep.
Now, For a PMO build schedule, you might want to basically first of all define what that is
Yeah.
and what its critical components are for
Yeah.
the benefits in the context of emerging trends and tech.
Yeah. And again, I think that's going to be fundamentally the same, except there's going to be new components as we think about where AI is going. But a PMO build schedule. So in my book, the PMO lifecycle building, running, and shutting down, I basically give a free, and it's 700-800 lines or something. It's a massive schedule in both Project and Excel, but it's the tactical steps to build a PMO. It's the tactical do this. How long is it going to take? Here are the resources that you need. It's a step by step framework on building a PMO. And then it also includes running a PMO, but in particular to this particular question is what do you do tactically to build a PMO step by step in a
Mm-hmm.
project schedule? So
Mm-hmm.
that's when we talk about a build schedule, it's a schedule to build a PMO, basically. And then
Mm-hmm.
I've included the run parts as well, because I think they're fundamentally different. Yeah, so the difference in this build schedule. Now, the one I did is where most people lean is this tactical directive PMO. But as I said earlier, the type of PMO will drive what the build schedule would look like. So you do very different things if you're building a supportive PMO than you would a directive PMO and then even an agile PMO. So the type of PMO would drive the build schedule.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, and to the benefit of everyone learning from this, we would get into the weeds of things, but I do, at this point, forgive me for stating that, I do at this point want to begin to recommend anyone and everyone listening to get that book, Build House book.
Thanks.
It really, 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 really is very helpful, so that you have beyond this podcast, you have the benefit of having a bit of a deep dive to thoroughly understand everything not mentioned, though he would try to cover as much as possible. So
Yeah.
moving forward, so what will be the best practices for implementing PMO staples in the context of emerging trends and tools?
Yeah. And I think from a staple perspective, we have to define what staples mean, right? So
Yes.
again, type of PMO. So if we go just down the directive path, as staples for a directive PMO would be from project management, it would be risks and issues and action items and schedules, just that kind of that DNA of running a project. So from a
Mm-hmm.
PMO perspective, you as a PMO leader, you want to set up those staples. You want to set a standard risk and issue log, a standard decision log, action items log, lessons learned log, a standard schedule. You want to have that all repeatable, consistent, because it becomes scalable when you're doing that across a PMO. So, from a staples perspective, and a project management perspective, from a staples, it's risk and issues and actions. But you may also have program management, and that will actually have different staples. That'll have like program schedules, which would be different than a project schedule. It'll have interdependency management, which is critical from a program perspective, that you may not use as much from a project. And then, of course, from a PMO perspective, you could have governance. So, what are some of the staples there? Intake, scoring, prioritization models, right? Resource management models. So, staples are going to be very different based on what the executives and the company need, but then also on the type. I ran a supported PMO at a large software company, right? I ran a supported PMO, and my staples were very different than the directive PMO that I ran at the same company, right? My supported PMO staples were PMP training, right? Software, guiding people through what software to use to manage their projects. That's very different than a directive PMO and the staples I set up there. So it's
Mm-hmm.
an interesting question because it's the type, it's what the executives want within the PMO, And then the executives will also have their own take on what the staples mean. So it's a very
Fantastic.
loaded, very loaded, very detailed type of question.
So, use case, for example, a new project manager gets on a project.
Yep.
Um, how would they ensure that they adopt best practices for implementation before they're able to certify? When it comes to audits,
Yep.
they don't get into they will never get into problems and so forth. So
Yep.
how do they adopt, how do they first of all identify what the best practices are, then adopt those best practices?
I think there's two major components to that. The first major component is the onboarding. What is the PMO doing to onboard that project manager? So within a PMO environment, what are they doing to onboard? Right? So what are the steps? What are the process? So you generally put someone together with that new PM and help them on board, but and walk through some of those same questions and processes. But the second component, and I've been a Microsoft guy for years and years, is the use of software, the use of Project Online, the use of SharePoint, the use of just basically getting a software or a project environment set up for that individual to come in, get their OneNote set up, get their risk and issue log set up, get their, all those type of components. When you do that and the software set up and the PMO has set the right environment up, you get that repeatability and that consistency. And we often don't really understand the value, or we don't talk about the value of repeatability and consistency and scalability on how project managers execute on their projects. Because we want to be fast, we want to be agile, we want to have people thinking on their own and how they're delivering, but that doesn't scale. Right? So it's really important. So the root of your question is, how do PMs coming on board be successful? I think they have to think about repeatability and consistency, right? Because that
But
will allow them to scale. That will allow them to go to a lessons learned log and go through the lessons learned log because everyone's putting it in the same repeatable manner.
fantastic. So you did mention um, the onboarding,
Yep.
of that new PM, helping that new PM probably understand what the governance models, project, program, portfolio
Yep.
governance models are. So they will probably learn that from whoever is helping them, whoever they've been matched with, to help them through what those are. Then also the PMO can provide support by way of what tools are in place and they should adopt,
Yep.
probably when reporting and when delivering projects. So
Yeah.
that is very, very, very helpful.
Yeah, one of the things I've set up for years and years is a thing called the PMO Buddy System. I wrote it in both of my books, and it is just basically it's a buddy, it's a PM buddy. So a new PM comes on board, or they just buddy up and they can help them on board. They can ask questions, they can cover them when they're on vacation. There's no formality to it. It's just, you're my buddy. Hey, can I ask you a
Mhm.
question about this project? Can I run my status report? And I'm telling you, it's been one of the greatest programs I've ever created because it's free, it's informal, it's fun, and they have someone to turn to, because most project managers don't want to go to their management layer and say, hey, can you help me with this project? Hey, can you help me? They don't. They want to solve it themselves. They're leaders. But to have a buddy and have someone they can turn to and say, hey, could I run this project issue by you? And that would really help with the onboarding as well.
That is very fantastic. That is very fantastic. The PM body. That so many, you can't believe so many PMs, especially for those who are transitioning into core PM, who are
Yeah.
transitioning to specific PM areas. They would need that PM body. Um, and sometimes you're scared.
Yeah.
sometimes
That's right.
sometimes they lose confidence and they cannot approach anyone.
Yep.
But when an enterprise sets that up, that is being, that is a partnership that they would definitely,
And
and their
have for
project
years. Yeah. And they have for
mm-hmm.
years. And then what I've always done is every 6 months, you mix up the buddies. You just mix them up. You
Fantastic.
just
Mm-hmm.
randomly mix them up, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
that concept gives people a new connection with someone else in the PMO, but it basically just continues to build the relationships across the PMO. There's no HR component to this. There's no mentor-mentee relationship to this. They're peers, they're buddies, and they're there to help one another. And I've had people
Fantastic.
fight like crazy, like, "Oh, this is stupid. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it." And then I go, just try it once. And they absolutely love it. They go to lunch together, they go to coffee together, they do it. And now virtually is even more important, right? They've
Mm-hmm.
got someone
Mm-hmm.
that they can turn to. So I've done it across multiple companies. I wrote it in my books. It's very simple, it's very easy, but it's so
Mm-hmm.
much fun and it's so valuable.
Definitely, definitely. Let's move on to the next
Sure.
question.
Yeah.
We want to dive into milestones that should be included in a PMO build schedule. You've mentioned, of course, there are different PMO
Yeah.
types, but across board, what essential, especially in the context of, okay, fine, future development, to ensuring that the PMO is impactful, right?
Yeah.
Is always impactful. What milestones cut across the different types of PMO and future developments?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because when you think about basically the impact, or that's going to be an executive, that's going to be a company level discussion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the executive is going to determine the impact of the PMO, right? The execution and the delivery of the projects in a consistent, repeatable manner is going to define the impact. When you think about milestones, just taking a directed PMO, right? Most directed PMOs have governance, right? And so some of the milestones are getting intake processes in place, getting scoring systems, getting prioritization models, right? If you've got a great governance process in place, that is an extremely valuable milestone that executives across the board would value, right? Project comes in, they take it through the intake process, they score it, they prioritize it. Now think about that from a impact that that's going to take. But again, when you think about major milestones, you're thinking about what is the different things that the PMO can do that makes the biggest impact on that company. So major deliveries of projects, right? Major, getting those fundamental steps in place so everyone's delivering the same way, governance, dashboard and reporting, right? That's a major component to get set up as well so people can see exactly what's going on. So there are big nuggets there that most PMOs and most people should be looking towards when building an impactful PMO. And then, of course, when you think about 2025 and you think about where we're going, what's the impact of AI, right? What's that major milestone, and how are we going to take PMOs through the AI journey? And there'll be major milestones along the way there. I don't think we're there yet, right? I think we're going to be there closer in 2025 than we are
Mm-hmm.
today. But major milestones from a PMO perspective, you really got to think about that AI journey as well. And how does that play into that? So those are just governance, program, and project. Those are just some of the major milestones that PMOs can do to really make an impact to their organization. And again, it's going to be driven a lot by executives. Executives will drive the impact because they're going to really
Fantastic.
say this PMO is not impactful or they are impactful.
Mm-hmm. 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 I know that there's a lot of manual basically touches on what the priorities are, what the overarching strategies and objectives are, ensuring that the PMO rolls up, executes projects, rolling up, feeding into the prioritization, rolling up into the enterprise strategy and all that. So those are very key. And now you have PMO leaders working constantly, tracking that across board. Now going forward, where you now have, I know that when AI comes in, there will be solutions tailored towards reporting. There will be solutions helping with the prioritization, helping with benefits tracking, benefits realization, and stuff like that. Now, factoring all this, how can PMOs effectively, what effort would PMOs need to effectively communicate their value propositions to executives?
So that's a great question. It's one I get all the time as well. And every executive is going to have their own values, value points, right? So one executive at one company will understand the value based on his or her program and project management background. Another executive at a different company is going to have a different value. So the key here is, as a PMO leader, is understanding that value, understanding that the value points that the executive will want. Some executives will say, hey, just get everything delivered on time and on budget, right? Just the very basic. Some executives have moved past that and says every project has to deliver ROI. We have to have an ROI. We have to have benefits management. We have to understand that. We've got to track that. We've got to put all that stuff in place. So it's really going to depend on the executive and his or her background within the execution of a project, right? When you get executives that have no stake in the game and have no understanding of programs and projects, and that's a red flag. That's something you got to really worry about, because you won't have the triangle, right? The iron triangle to focus on, because they're not going to even think like that. You're not going to have ROI and benefits. They're not going to think like that. So it's really, really important PMO leaders work with their executives and understand their hot buttons, understand their backgrounds, their experiences, and then cater and adjust to where they're valuable. So if you got an executive that's all over ROI and all over benefits management, you're going to want to get that set up at the intake and track that through. You're going to want to change your project management processes to continue to look at ROI and value management throughout the life of the project. And then you're going to figure out, when the project goes live, how are you going to continue to track that? So that's a very different process for that executive who's really bought into ROI and value and benefits management, compared to one that's not and never brings ROI up. So your PMO is going to have to adapt and adjust as well. Does that make sense? Because it's really around, you're saying, hey, how do you shift business priorities and how do you adjust and tweak for 2025? I don't think 2025 and 2024 is that different. I think there's a very big executive play here and how they're going to drive your execution of your PMO. And I've done 10 PMOs. Like, I've seen how valuable executives make a difference on the success or not of your PMO.
Great nuggets. So many of the things you said, you did touch on a few key things, because those play into the challenges a PMO will face in garnering executive support. So in addition to having stakeholders who have, for example, you have the project delivery mindset where it's end of project, you want to see the end result. You're not part of the ROI, you're not part of the milestone tracking. You don't fully understand that. So that is very difficult. So in addition to having such executives on board, on a project board, on steering committee, when trying to deliver a project or a program, what other common challenges are faced when securing executive support for a PMO and the PMO's approach?
Yeah, there's two components. There's multiple components, but there's two main components. You secure executive support to build your PMO, and then you have to maintain that executive support to run your PMO. And that's a very, very different component, because when you're securing your executive support to build your PMO, you're generally in a problem situation. Right? We're not delivering on time. Our projects are a mess. We have no ideas what's going on, and so you get all the support in the world to build your PMO. Now you've built it. Now you're trying to execute it. Now you're trying to execute it from a scalability and a consistency. Your executive support, now that you're executing, is now going to waver a little bit. Yeah, okay, now we got everything under control. Now your executive support is around turning the maturity. And that's very different, because the first scenario is you got problems all over the place. Build me a PMO and get this thing resolved. Okay, now I built it. Now I'm trying to mature it. Well, hold on. Why are you trying to mature it? Why are you trying, right? And then you get into that battle, if you would, back and forth, because you got the thing set up and now it's running, but they're going to always want to turn the dial. And it's like, well, hold on. We're trying to just get this thing going here, and you want to keep turning and turning and turning. So that's a problem. The other problems that you can run into is you're too bureaucratic, right? You've got too much process. You're not agile enough, right? But that's also very, very differently. You think about that very differently based on the size of your PMO. If I've got a PMO with 5 project managers and we're running 20 projects, okay, get it. If I've got a project PMO with 40 project managers and we're running over 100 projects, that's a very different conversation. And what I tend to see is we don't see a lot of people talking about that massive scale, that we're running 150, 100, 200 projects, right? That's a very different scenario than someone running 20 or 10 or 15. Right? So there's a lot of nuances to that. So when we talk about too bureaucratic, too many rules, too many processes, that's actually to help the project managers. That's actually to help the organization, but it comes across as a problem. And it comes across as a major, well, you're not agile enough, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. So I think you have to really think about that repeatability and that scalability when you're talking about such large PMOs and such complicated PMOs.
Fantastic. You did touch on scale playing into the delivery governance, playing into ensuring that the maturity as a PMO is supposed to mature. The critical stakeholders, the business leaders, are carried along continuously, because they need to constantly be behind, or even in front of, sometimes, of initiatives, of processes, changes to processes, and even the maturity process for the PMO itself. So the people is important. People very important. Governance very important. Scale very important. Those things are the things I picked up from what you said, which are very valuable. Some people would want to run a PMO of five project managers, 20 projects, the same way they would want to run or mature a PMO of 40 project managers to 100 projects. And it will not work. It will not work.
Nope.
Delivery models will be different. Stakeholder buy-ins will be different. Project sponsors and business stakeholder executive support will be different. Maturing that PMO will be different. So those things definitely come into play. Thank you for that. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, it is really it's a really interesting dynamic too, because, when you first get a PMO, you generally have a small number of PMs, a small number of projects, and then what happens is when you start delivering, when you start kind of moving the bar up, right? Then they'll go, well, let's get you another project manager. Let's take on another project manager. Let's get another, and you just grow. You grow based on the great job you've done, right? And you just continue to grow and continue to grow. But then it becomes this scalable problem. If I've got a customer, for example, that has got 5 or 6 different project managers working with them, that customer wants the same experience. They want color conditions, red, yellow, green. They want every project manager to use the same color conditions, same status reports. Very different with 5 people compared to 25 people, right? And we often don't really recognize, especially when we're talking about building PMOs and all the stuff you see on the web and LinkedIn and all that stuff, we don't recognize the size and scale and how do you, right? But then it comes across too bureaucratic. It comes across too rigid, too structured. So it's a very difficult balance that you have to do to be successful with this.
And that basically plays into the next question and final question,
Sure.
which is transforming the PMO or retiring the PMO, right? Transforming the PMO through maturity levels, right? Or retiring the PMO. In light of, no, that's second to last question. In light of advancements and all that, how should a PMO determine whether it's time to transform or time to retire the PMO for that matter?
Yeah. So in 20 plus 22, 23 years of running PMOs, I've never seen them retire. I've seen the shut down. And generally they shut down because they're tied to a program, right? You've got a PMO that's built for a program. The program cancels, the program shuts down, the PMO shuts down. So I've been involved with that as well. So I'm not seeing the retire, but what I've seen is executives come in and say, we want to decentralize project management, right? PMOs are centralized project management. Executives want to decentralize that. I've seen that to unbelievable failures, right? There's not that just doesn't scale when the PMs are scattered all over the country or company. That doesn't work. When you talk about the transformation of a PMO, that's a continuous journey. You have to constantly be looking for what's next, right? We talked earlier about AI. That's going to be another huge transformation.
Definitely.
Right? From a PMO perspective, I don't know from a project manager perspective, but a PMO for sure. Right? When you say, hey, let's put AI on an issue log that has 3 issues, I don't think you really need that. But if you put AI on an issue log that's got 200 issues because you're doing it at the PMO level, you 100% need that. Right?
Yes.
So I think PMO leaders that stay on top of the game are always looking to transform, always looking to go, what's next? How do we get efficient? While still delivering their programs and projects. Because we can't stop around, right? We can't stop thinking about the delivery and how do we continue to move the delivery bar. But when you think about a PMO as a business unit, a business organization, the same as finance, the same as HR, a PMO's in the same, they got to be constantly looking to transform as well. And 2025 is going to bring some great things from that perspective, right? AI, new tools. We're seeing new tools come up.
Yes.
Dashboard and reporting, Power BI, Tableau. Like we're seeing some great data components of that as well. So we're just going to continue to get better, continue to grow.
And I'm looking forward to that. Any project manager out there, any program manager out there shouldn't be scared.
No.
They shouldn't be scared or worried too much. That is definitely welcome. We can partner with even the most advanced form of AI humanoids, right?
Right.
We will get there, but for 2025, we're still just one big step forward, right?
Yeah.
So,
and we've talked earlier about the art and science of project management, right? The art and science, the communications, the leadership, the influence without authority. You're not going to get that. You're not going to
From
get that
AI,
in
yes.
AI, right? You're just not going
Mm-hmm.
to get there. And if
Mm-hmm.
we lose that balance of art and science, because I've managed a lot of PMs. I mean, 1991, 1992-ish is when I started managing PMs. So I've been doing it for a long time, right? And I have seen project managers that are unbelievable in art and horrible in science. Unbelievable in
Mm-hmm.
science, horrible in art.
Horrible with art.
And if you don't have that blend, which AI is not going to have that blend for years and years and years, if
Mm-hmm.
you don't have that blend, you won't be successful in this role.
You won't
You
have an
just won't
edge,
be.
yeah.
You won't have the edge.
Mm-hmm.
You can go one way or the other, but the more successful ones are the ones that blend it together.
Yes, yes, I'm aligned with that, definitely. And that takes us to the last question. Now, where do you think that PMOs have to go to ensure long-term success in 2025 and beyond? Is there a specific now that question doesn't ask a specific place to go,
Yeah,
but it speaks to what they should have in place
yeah,
um, to be successful in 2025.
yeah, 100%. And what I love about that question is, and we touched upon it earlier, and it seems to be a line that a lot of people say, but I strongly believe in it, and it's strategic alignment, right? How does the PMO help the company get better? How does the
Mm-hmm.
PMO deliver programs and projects that are going to move the bottom line? And so the strategic alignment is a key component to be successful in 24, 25, 26, 27, going forward. The other component that I've been harping on for years and years, and it's slowly getting there, is data. What's the data of the PMO? What's the data of the projects? And I think when we think about 2025, project managers, PMO leaders really have to rally around the data within their organization, especially if AI is going to crunch the data for us. What are we seeing across all of our projects in lessons learned? What are we seeing in risks? What are we seeing in issues? What are we seeing in our survey data? So, strategic alignment and data are really two key components that I just think we have to keep nailing. And PMO leaders would
Fantastic.
be best to really think about that from a 2025 perspective.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. Those are the most important things. Also, I'm aligned with that. Those are the most important. Having that strategic alignment,
Yeah.
especially with business sponsors, leaders, and what's going on economically. Then also data. Data does. Some say data doesn't lie, right?
Right. It doesn't.
Right.
Yeah. And it's how
Exactly.
you transform that data and how you view that data and how data becomes information, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
data has to go through a path. Data by itself is no good. Data, when it's
Yes.
combined with other data, becomes information, and you can make decisions based on
Based
information.
on that.
Yeah.
Definitely. And that helps the enterprise with, very, very important decisions.
Yeah.
Definitely.
100%.
Um, I have thoroughly enjoyed this. I have learned a couple of things myself, even
Oh,
after
good.
reading, even after reading the book. I've learned a couple of things myself, and I'm hoping that
Awesome.
those listening to this podcast also have learned quite a lot of things, and it will help. Like I stated earlier, it will help a great deal for you to grab the book.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you.
but in conclusion, Bill, how can the audience reach you, and
Yeah.
what should they look out for coming from you shortly?
Yeah, 100%. So buildoutpmptraining.com. So buildoutpmptraining, all one word.com. Basically get you to my whole world, right? So when you get there, you'll see PMO related items, you'll see project management related items. And so that's really the best place to get to. I have recently, coming up, there's new articles, new ebooks, there's lots of new stuff coming, but I have recently released a number of new products from a PMO perspective. How to build a governance, PMO roadmaps. So there's brand new, when you go to buildoutpmptraining.com, you're going to see a lot of brand new products out there. Just continuing to help PMO leaders and project managers, but continuing to help both skills really drive their career forward.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. You've heard that.
Course.
People@pmp.com. Please reach out to, please visit the website. And also, of course, through LinkedIn, you can find Builder
Yeah. Yeah. Please
on
connect with
LinkedIn.
me. Yeah.
If you want to reach out to him for consulting for several opportunities, several products. Now, if you have learned something from this video, please like this video and don't forget to click and subscribe and click the bell notification button and subscribe if you wish to continue to get great content connecting life and IT project management. Until our next show, remember, every man is the architect and project manager of his own fortune. Thank you.
Thank you.